Former homeless people. What did you need the most? What was the best thing someone did for you? For me it was socks. Shoes too. But the simplest thing of socks. Made me feel better about myself. When it was cold I could pull out a pair of four to use on my feet or hands. Yes, I was heartbroken to see the amount of people going through winter without socks or shoes. That was the most intensely compelled I've ever felt to do something. There was a barefoot man sleeping on the subway in 20-degree weather and I tucked a $20 next to him. I just hope it actually made it into his hands. Gifted me an old, baggy waterproof jacket with a big hood. It had many pockets too. A little large to carry around. Since I was carrying a lot of other stuff. Too. But proved very useful. It was very rainy at that time. Hygiene. Anyone who let me take a shower and shave was an angel. Came here to say this. Most homeless people aren't long-term, living on the street type homeless. They're couch surfing or living out of their car. In my case mostly the former and some of the latter. For maybe 4 months many years ago. I had a job. Some savings. And a working car. All I needed was a restroom and shower so I could go to work and not stink. I saved some money and got a place with roommates when a room opened up. Yes. My situation wasn't severe. But it was common. Luckily I had friends and wasn't addicted to drugs. So it wasn't really a terrible hardship. I usually would do dishes for people after staying there before I left. Cleaned up if I was staying at after a party, etc. Gotta repay people's favors and avoid being a burdensome mooch if you want to sleep on couches. Employment. I wasn't addicted. And wasn't mentally ill. But I had legal trouble and employers aren't going to hire someone who is probably going to jail 5 months from now. I had to work under the table for like $4 per hour. If there had been a way for me to get a decent temp job I could have probably got a shitty apartment for the interim. I was able to secure a spot in a church basement for a little while. The nicest thing anyone did was one of the people from church brought me a Super Nintendo and a stack of games to help keep the boredom and loneliness at bay. I was homeless with a dog. So that made everything a lot more difficult. Just finding enough food and water for us both to survive. When I was first homeless it would get pretty cold at night and it was hard to keep blankets because when it rained and they got wet it took forever for them to dry again. Me and my dog would huddle together under a tarp just shivering. This, https://imgur. Ameo3ktqlw is the best spot we had. Lived at an abandoned tire shop. In a tire rack on a sort of bed I made us of stuff I found in various dumpsters. I would pick up bottles of water or whatever kind of drink people throw away. And fill them up at a water faucet outside this church that was nearby. They never bitched me out, so that was really nice. I was so scared every time I would go to fill up water. I remember shaking so bad. Eyes darting around everywhere, ready to bolt. But it was so hot, I was so thirsty and hungry. Sometimes on my way to get water I'd get too tired to even walk anymore from the heat and dehydration. I'd literally fall asleep on the sidewalk on a main street for hours. No one once ever stopped to check if I was dead. The best thing someone did was getting me off the streets. I was passed out under a bride with my dog. And I get woken up by this guy holding a box of donuts. I was in awe. He gave me 2, one for me, and I gave the other to my dog. It tasted so good. Food. And it hadn't even been on the ground. He was with 3 people. They were part of an outreach group. They got me into a shelter. With my dog, that day. I was just crying. So happy. So thankful. I was barely surviving. Clean socks and underwear and basic hygiene. The best thing a person did for me was explain to me that nobody gives a fuck about me except me and my family. That conversation went a long way to me stopping shooting up in alleys and getting a career. My wife was homeless as a teenager. On Friday afternoons. The businessman would walk up to her and ask her if she was hungry. She would say yes. And he would take her into the restaurant on the corner. She never felt any danger with him and she has had to cut somebody badly before. He was just some dude offering her a meal. He would let her get anything in the menu. He would sit and read the paper and drink a cup of coffee. There was never any conversation. When he was finished, he would pay the bill and leave. There was never any exchange of words other than "you hungry?" and "have what you want?" and "have a good afternoon." This happened multiple times. She never felt like a project to him. She never felt less than him. She never felt in danger. He was just a guy who saw a dirty girl on the street who needed to eat. She has since gotten her GED, graduated from a trade school with a fitness degree, and now has earned her MBA with honors. She is an amazing woman and an amazing mother. The one wish she has is that she can run into the businessman who bought her lunches and thank him. Showers and a place to wash your clothes to save as much money for food to be able to get dollar menu items and feed yourself 3 times off $5 and some change. Not sure if living in the car counts as homeless though, but a 93 Accord ain't exactly a home edit. This is my first time ever getting silver. Thank you stranger. Definitely letting me shower. Giving me new sharp clippers for my toenails from constantly wearing boots and not having clippers. Your nails get really long and start to become really painful. Giving me bags of food for my dog, letting me bathe my dog. Fresh socks and underwear, doggy sweaters or rain jackets for my dog. Pretty much hygiene for myself. Good treats and warmth for dog face. When I was around 10 to 11 years old, my mom and I went to Aldi. It was cold out and I walked to our car with my mom and told her to get in and I'd put the bags in the back seat and take the cart back. I did so and forgot to lock the grocery cart in. So I trailed back to do so. When I got there, I noticed I had tried to, but I hadn't pushed it in all the way. When I did so, the quarter came out and I think this homeless older lady with her black lab had been trying to get it. When she realized it had been my quarter, she gave it to me. I quickly told her that it was okay and to keep it and tried to find any change in my pockets, but had none. I went to pet her dog gently and he winced away before I touched him. That broke my heart. It sounds so stupid but in my head I wondered what this poor dog and his human had been through that made her apologize profusely and try to give back a quarter and him wince away when anyone went to show him affection. That's the first time I remember ever realizing how sad the world really is. I think about them often and wish I had a chance to do it over and have run to the car to get money for them from my mom. Or anything to help more than a useless quarter did. Homelessness hurts me to see in my city, but when I see any homeless people with animals, I feel it to my core. I aim to open a homeless shelter for those with pets. Specifically, when I lost my job after the Y2K remediation, I wound up broke as a joke and no hopes of job from anywhere in Oregon at the time. Girlfriend got asked to come take over her family's failing company business in Utah and we decided to go for it. Got here with nowhere to live. No money, 1/4 tank of gas. We lived in our cars for a while, then we found a row of 3 abandoned houses in Provo and squatted in the middle one. While she tried to rescue the family business. I got a gig delivering those stupid free newspapers that people get in their driveway. Wife's car was a long DEF 350, so we could deliver a ton of papers. That's what kept us fed. I was 32 and a paper route was my only income. As far as the nicest thing anyone did. One day a guy came and knocked on our door, saying he was the house owner. We said sorry and we will pack up and GTFO right now. However, the guy was nice. He said he owned all 3 of these empty houses and thanked us for keeping the crackheads out of them and he let us stay there. He even turned the power on for us. WTF. 6 months after that I wound up getting a job at eBay. And it was onward and upward from there. So really all we needed was a chance. We got it. P.S. Thank you all kind strangers for the Silver and Gold and Best Comment Award for 11 July 2019. 15 years ago the most crucial things we needed were impossible like a mailing address, phone number, toilet, and water. We'd keep a payphone under watch for those who get calls. Trying to get a job. Housing. Anything. The basics are hard. Now phones are cheap. But water and toilet are still real needs. Addresses are still tricky but easier as we rely on a location less and digital info more. Public transportation is still ridiculous. You have to spend a day or two convincing the system you need it free. Otherwise you'll be out what little you can make in a 3 transit path. I was homeless at 14 in New York City. The thing I needed most was to be able to see the finish line. To know when this would come to an end. The feeling was like being put in prison without committing a crime and not being told your release date so you couldn't even count the days. The desolation so dark that it all but drained the life from me. I'm 60 years old now and that feeling still comes back to me. At times I feel like I'm still on the street. I'm homeless currently living in a motel. I've been homeless for 4 years as of this month. We need ways to clear our names so we can actually move into places. My mom got evicted from our apartment after getting laid off and now we can't move in anywhere half decent anymore. Only motels and living with other people. Also, stability is really nice. But almost impossible to come by for more than a few months. The nicest thing was an old couple taking in me and my mom for 3 months. Some really great people and I'll always appreciate them. Money lol but really it's stability that's the hardest to come by. Nobody has faith that anybody homeless can make it out of their situation, but as a man who has been on his own since 16 with nothing but the clothes on my back it's hard to come from nothing to stable. Just need someone to believe that you have the hustle to grind and make it out. I was a street kid. From 13 to 18 I coasted around on my own. As you can imagine it was a pretty rough ride. I don't remember an awful lot of it, but a few people stand out even now. I think the only thing they have in common is that they saw me. It's amazing how invisible you feel on the street. People steer their children away from you. Avert their gaze. Pretend you're invisible. It gets to you. I vividly remember this one woman. Immaculately dressed. Gorgeous Eastern European woman. Around 40. I was panhandling and she walked right up to me and asked me to eat with her. We sat on a patio smoking cigarettes. Snacking, drinking coffee. She asked me questions about myself like she really cared. And she listened. Didn't offer miracle solutions or pity. Just fed me lunch and listened. I remember her face 15 years later. It's why now. In my reincarnation as a soccer mom. I teach my children to always acknowledge when it's safe to do so. You don't always need to give. But a smile, or a how are you, goes an incredibly long way. Aged out of foster care, nowhere to go, but a squat house. I was what Utah folks called a planter box kid. Spent a year doing any job and every job I possibly could to get out of it, then I joined the army. Spent 4 years as a soldier and failed a marriage, which meant when I got a medical discharge after my deployment I was homeless again. Spent a little while in a veteran group home, but they only give you 90 days to get a place and get out. My disability pay wasn't enough for rent, but I went to a day labor and stood with the Mexicans at Home Depot for odd jobs. Finally, my best friend offered me to move back home to Texas or work as a ranch hand for her dad, so I moved back to Texas. She became a huge advocate for me with a VI, and now I run a ranch. I'm off all my pain psychoactive drugs and haven't been drunk in 3 years. Oh, and now my best friend is my wife. We have 4 kids. Official identification. All the homeless people I speak to have a hard time getting a state ID. Showers and laundry facilities. A place to sleep and shower. You'd be amazed how much you'd value a good night's sleep on a couch or a bed than in the morning having a shower. The close second to those was actually someone taking my situation seriously and helped me through it. My situation was an odd one. I was considered too unstable mentally to hold down a job, yet I still had to work because while I was considered by doctors and mental health professionals to be unstable. My country's fucked up sense of what poverty isn't. I couldn't claim any benefits. It didn't help that the one benefit I was entitled to was withheld from me by a vindictive housing officer, and my abusive mother would steal most of my money I got. I can only speak about my homeless experience, but I had a point where I was at the lowest point and it took 2 suicide attempts to actually get any help for my issue. I left an abusive relationship and, turns out, he was right. I had nowhere to go. I slept under a train and shoplifted what few basics I couldn't go without, which, frankly, I still don't regret. Fuck the Waltons and got a job at a Burger King. I mean, being homeless and all meant that my hygiene was horrible. Cut off all my hair to hide it, but there's a certain point where you can't anymore. One of my managers pulled me aside and asked me what was up. She called out, sweetly as she could, the red flags she'd seen. My self-harm scars. My hygiene, the breakdown I had when my ex came through the drive-thru, and I'm pretty sure she already knew what was up, at least somewhat. She started scheduling all of our shifts to overlap and taking me home with her. Not far from my nest spot. So I could shower and eat dinner with her and her kid. Hinda just took me in as best she could. The shower was nice. So was the food. But the experience of someone giving a shit was what helped. Quite honestly. Be kind. Tampons. People who let us wash clothes or shower at their place. The gym membership for the showers and such.